Stop raining. Stop raining, Ed.
It has indeed. Yes, it's the weather is now significantly better.
And you're looking. I'm very well. You're looking magnificent in your fantastic setting there. You've got pieces of equipment sat behind you. You've got yourself framed beautifully. What I've got is a white wall and partial window behind me. I've just really not thought this through, have I?
No, it's a bit of an art form. It's one of these backdrops that sort of manufactures itself, to be honest, and then you kind of get bored at work during the day with lockdown, bring things down and play with them, and then kind of put them back, and yeah, it's quite nice, really.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to think through. I'm gonna have to think this through a lot better for next time, Ed. I really am quite embarrassed myself, really, with my whole surroundings. Anyway, welcome everybody. Sorry, we should stop rambling and welcome everybody.
Absolutely, yes.
What is Modulate 9 live, our first ever live show. This is extraordinary.
Welcome everybody.
Indeed. So, well, I'm Jules. This is Ed Wright. This is our special guest for the night, because we have a very special show tonight, Ed, don't we? We have a Modulate X oscilloscope. We have the 2 times the 2. So we should probably try and describe the concept, really, shouldn't we? So do you want to give that a go, Ed? Because you'll do a far better job of it than I will.
I doubt it, but I will give it a try. So over time, Oscilloscope has been an ongoing event focusing on doing experimental electronic music, and Modulate's been kind of running in parallel with this almost for quite a while, and there's been a lot of crossover between them. A lot of the same people do bits with both camps. Sometimes people are exclusively one or the other, and given that quite a few of us have done gigs and shows in the real world and here with both, it seemed about time that we kind of put something together and collaborated. So tonight, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, but we've mashed it right up there, haven't we? That's the trouble. What we've done is we've reversed the whole thing round, so everything is completely back to front. So tonight we have oscilloscope performers trying to do a Modulate experience, and then on Tuesday we have, let me just get this right way around, Modulate performers trying to do an oscilloscope performance. So basically we're trying to take literally everybody out of their box and try to get them to do something completely different. So tonight is people who are normally used to doing something, I don't know, how would you describe it, Ed? More experimental, more slightly on the wild side, really.
Precisely, yeah. It's one of those sort of things where we get into very dangerous territory as to how we describe our own work and other people's work and reactions to it. But I would say, I mean, the defining thing about a lot of the oscilloscope stuff is that it's electronic and experimental. So generally, you tend to get people working with a sort of a broader canvas, less beats-based, more focusing on kind of conceptual, arty things, and it's quite an experience getting out and actually then trying to focus into a whole different language, you know, that's sort of quite familiar, but also not necessarily the same ways of working at all, but in many cases achievable on exactly the same bits of equipment, which is quite intriguing.
Absolutely. Would it be fair to say that so that for the oscilloscope guys, this is about trying to put boundaries around what they're trying to do, and for the Modulate guys, trying to take those boundaries away and say, right, okay, forget about your 4 to the floor, forget about the structure that you're used to trying to work within, just break out of that structure and do something completely different. And for the oscilloscope guys, trying to say, right, okay, you're used to just being able to meander wherever you want, but hang on a minute, you're going to have to start to come and work within some walls here.
I think to some extent, yeah. But also, I think it's kind of reattuning that sort of that aesthetic and that mindset. In that, a lot of the time when you're doing experimental stuff, quite often you set up those walls for yourself, and they are your own boundaries that you set and work within.
Yeah.
Whereas what I found trying to do a piece for this, you were very much almost second guessing, going, there is this language, there is this more four to the floor feel, that everybody sort of has some expectations as to what you're going to do and what they expect to hear. So you're almost second guessing more what you think other people will be expecting, which is quite intriguing, rather than just setting up your own prison and then rattling around inside that, you know.
And that's almost worse, isn't it? Trying to preempt what people are going to feel and what people want, because you kind of don't want to be doing that, really, do you? You want to be doing just what you feel you ought to be doing, and what feels natural, and what feels that you should. You know, that's what producing music's kind of about, really. It's about you, really. It's what you enjoy the most, not what you really. I mean, it probably should be about what other people like too, but you know, it is really about you, really, isn't it? It's about expressing yourself through an art form.
Absolutely, and I think, but actually, also having kind of gone through this process for this, what was really intriguing was actually how that made you think and approach kind of the way that you work and the way that you approach, say, making a piece of music, or actually how you engage physically with a bit of equipment. That then opened up other places that you kind of hadn't really considered. And then all of a sudden, when you go back to your own kind of ways of working and methodologies, there's actually now that extra bit that's now informed, that you kind of sort of opened a few doors that you can then kind of go, okay, I hadn't considered this, or this pushed me in a different direction, which is really quite cool.
So do you think for your future work then, will what you've done that we're going to hear tonight, will that have an influence on future work you do, and actually add other things to that from the experience that you've taken from tonight?
I think so, yeah. Whether that's on a necessarily kind of superficial level, or in a sort of, okay, is everything going to now be fall to the floor? I don't know. Definitely, in terms of the ways that you approach things on a deeper level, yeah, it's great.
Well, I tell you what, Ed, why don't we start kicking into the first track? So we've got something really special for the first one anyway. So we've got Mark Albrow coming on the first one with a song called Mod 4. Now, I've had a brief listen to this. What I've tried to do with each of these tracks is have a little snippet of a listen and not listen too much, because I want to try and listen live with everybody else during the whole show, so that after each track we can actually just talk about this as a group of people, really, more than anything else. Normally I would listen to the song through and I make some notes, and honestly, I've not got a single note to refer to, which is a little scary, but you know, sure, it'd be fine. So why don't we have a listen? Should we pop that one on, Ed, and let's have a listen to that.
Absolutely.
And then we'll chat about it afterwards and bring Mark in. Okay, so this is Mark Albrow. If this is all right, Charles, give us a thumbs down if I'm trying to peak this too early. This is Mark Albrow with Mod 4, and we'll slip into that when Charles is ready. If you're ready, Charles. Christ. I'm sweating after that. I don't know how everybody else is feeling. That was an experience. That's any word for that. That was amazing.
Thank you very much.
I really enjoyed that as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
That really was astonishing. So anyway, yeah, we've got Mark here, the guy that made the song. This was astonishing. Yep. So how did you start all this stuff? Where did you start with the inspiration to try and bring? I mean, would you? And also, sorry, this is about 8 questions in one. And also, would you describe that as drum and bass? Because I was trying to.
Yeah.
I think it is.
I would. Yeah. 177 beats per minute.
Right.
Yes. What was it? 170? I can't remember. Anyway, yes, it was. It was one of those patterns, and as I was telling you earlier, I'd quadruple tracked it and messed around with each separate track to, treated them and messed around with it, affected them and so on, and used an arpeggiator and sequencer to get a bit of almost tunes going on, a bit of modulation. And I used that word. Yeah, a bit of modulation going on through it. And played a lot of SH-101 stuff live on top, and a couple of pads from Absinthe 5, I think Native Instruments Absinthe 5, because I've just got a Logic 10 kind of setup on my laptop. But I've got an MS-20, but I didn't use it on that one. The SH-101 was more than adequate. I think you were saying something about messenger ping, Ed, on that.
Oh yeah.
I sort of thought, no, it wasn't actually the messenger ping. It was just happened to be something I hit on the 101.
Yeah, for those people at home who might be wondering about this, we've got a messenger in the background amongst us lot who are making this tick, and it seems that basically that the ping from Facebook Messenger hits at exactly the 5th degree of the scale of your piece, and seems to fit in remarkably well. And I was having a moment going, is this part of it? Is it? No, it's not. And yeah, it was one of those moments of serendipity which was incredibly joyful at the time. So yes, apologies for not taking it as seriously as I should have done.
No, you were asking whether somebody had magically mixed it in somehow. That would have been pretty amazing. But yeah,
it was greatly enjoyable.
There was some kind of whistling and squeaking and popping bits in there. So which piece of equipment did you use to create those with?
Well, most of the slabs, I think there was a kind of not quite white noise, but there was a kind of slab of tone on there. I think that was from the Absinthe. It's hard to tell actually. I can't quite remember because they all melded in the end. But a lot of stuff was from the SH-101. Just gave me that ability to have a bit of a live interaction with what was happening, rather than it being a bit more planned and a bit more dry, because that's not so much fun, basically.
I don't know how you found it as well, Ed, but the combination of the video and the song were just superb. And I always have these little journeys when I watch and listen to things, and they're never quite the same journey anybody else has. But I've never had an acid trip, but that felt to me like if I had an acid trip, I was in the back of a Dales taxi going from Colwyn Bay to Carnarvon, and I'd arrived in Carnarvon with a kebab in my pocket and half of my hair shaved off. I've not realised how I'd got there, but I'd had a fantastic journey. That's what it felt like. And I think I spotted Tesco's car park during that journey as well.
You did, yeah, more than once.
But it was, the two things, it was a visual element and an oral element. The whole thing combined beautifully. It was just superb.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. I'm glad it worked. For you and hopefully everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it was as Ed and yourself were saying, Jules, about the different approaches of say, well, different, similar, of say, oscilloscope and modulate. This I sort of immediately saw as an opportunity to use rhythm, so I did with a vengeance kind of thing. And I thought everything you were saying before about, establishing your own little parameters and then sticking to them was very insightful and bang on. So it's great to be able to break those down and just mix it up a bit. I've always loved working with rhythm anyway. It's just, I got quite into that rhythm because it does sort of grab you by the throat and shake you, doesn't it?
How hard did you find it? How far did you find it moving away from what you normally do into something like this?
I've done a lot of rhythmic stuff before, so I've found it very easy. Very easy, really. Like I said, I've sort of embraced it wholeheartedly.
No, clearly.
And sort of I've had to resist playing everything rhythmically. You know, you want to try and play it live, and you're always responding to the rhythm, and it's like, well, it's not necessarily going to make it any better. It's just going to make it sound like a complete mess.
Well, it didn't. Okay. It was utterly amazing, and I'm sure everybody else would go. And I can see some of the comments coming through, which are also very, very positive towards your song as well. Actually, Mike Smith from Fourth Eden's just popped through saying Absinthe was one of his first ones. Did the beats come first? That's a great question.
Yeah,
the beats came first. Yeah,
right.
That's a good question. The beats did come first, but yeah, I know it's quite a thing to what you start off with if you're doing if you're using rhythms.
That's interesting because it'd be interesting to know how everybody else has found that tonight as well. Because I know Rob Dixon will pull Rob in a little bit. Rob started beats first and then moved to modular gear. So it'd be interesting to know if everybody else has had that experience that they actually started with the beat side and then moved to modular. So you started very much with the beat side first, did you?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And just managed to get everything in sync. You know, like the sequencer and the arpeggiator, which these days is relatively easy. Though I do have a Dramatics, actually. I mistakenly called it a 303 last month, I think.
Right.
And it isn't. It's a 606. So I have in the past...
divide it by 2. It'll be fine.
I have in the past used that with the SH101, you know, in that sort of analog way. But I haven't got around to getting back into that again, but I will. But that's the nearest to, I'm saying that because that's the nearest to the kind of modularity that I've seen the Modulate guys use, you know, boxes and boxes and wires. I'm sure I can integrate the MS-20 in there as well.
And what's quite nice is there's actually pieces of kit, because I mean I don't understand the modular world at all. It is just utterly beyond me. And there are pieces of kit coming out now which are starting to try and help people like me move over into the modular world. So there's things like the Behringer Neutron, where it's you've got a small modular part to it, but actually if you don't need to use the modular part, you can just use it as a normal synthesizer, but it's still there on the side to start to experiment with. So there's becoming these like hybrid pieces of equipment now where you don't have to go purely modular, you can actually go a little bit in between the two, which does help people like me try and make that transition. I haven't even started yet. I'm not sure I'm going to, because it seems way too complicated and far too many wires. But it was all highly impressive, Mark. It really was. Well, did you enjoy the experience as well? Though? That was the main thing.
I did actually. I must admit, I was very nervous because I've not listened to it since I put it in, and I've got a sort of fear of things being tedious. You know, getting to a point and not peaking or not developing. And you just think, oh, it should have ended there, and it doesn't. It goes on. You think, oh God, well, should have stopped it there. But I felt that was sort of all right. That kind of still worked.
Well, it didn't go on, and it was a fantastic piece of music, Mark. And I'm sure everybody else enjoyed it as well. So thank you very much indeed for presenting that to us. Sorry, Ed, I'll pass over to you to introduce the next one. Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thanks, Jules.
Yeah,
cheers.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Ed. Mark. Yeah, cheers. This is great. This combination of the two, fab. Yeah.
Hey, cheers. Thank you very much. Is it me next?
It is, Ed. That's why I passed over to you especially to introduce yourself.
I was deliberately being very, very well behaved going, I can't wrap this up with Mark because that will just look like I'm going, no, listen to me. I've got to do. Here we are. Very simply, it's a piece of mine that literally just tries to rely on just stripped down to a modular setup. Unlike lots of people, I've not got a particularly big modular setup, and I'm very used to doing long soundscapey, evolving, developing things with it. And this is really a step out the comfort zone, but also was really nice actually doing a kind of tight performance, which felt like sort of weird close-up magic almost. We've sort of got into this space now where it's possible for everyone to see what you're doing. So I think I'll just leave it at that. It's a piece of mind which I randomly ended up deciding to call apricity because it was a good word that I discovered, and it basically refers to the sensation of feeling the winter sun and that warmth. And it felt like a sort of a nice kind of metaphor or feeling to work towards at the time. That kind of, okay, everything's a little bit bleak, but you know what? There's something that feels really good out there. So yeah, here we go, I guess.
Okay, well, this is Ed Wright. This is apricity. I know we'll enjoy this.
Thank you.
Ed, that was utterly amazing. That really was utterly amazing. That was fantastic. You might have noticed we've got a new face in the room as well. It's not a new face; it's an old face. Not being rude.
Oh, gosh.
It's Rob Dixon. How are you, Rob? Are you well?
I'm very well. Thanks for the lovely intro.
That's quite all right. Always a pleasure. Never a chore.
But no, good. That was a bit good, wasn't it?
It was a little bit good.
Thank you.
So, Ed, do you want to just talk us through a little bit about that bass line for a kickoff? Let's just stick with the bass line for a second. That bass line was amazing, and that stuck throughout the whole thing, and that just sewed the whole thing together. It was brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, basically, that was generated sort of procedurally. So I got a little Turing machine thing that kicks out a sequence of random frequencies, but basically it goes through the set of frequencies and then goes back and repeats it and repeats it and repeats it. But there's a sort of probability that they'll change, and basically shoved that through another little module there that is basically in charge of fitting it to a scale. And then that just basically worked and did its thing. So I faffed around with a few parameters on that. So in some cases it got a lot wider, so you then ended up with it turning from a bass line into a sort of lead line as well. With the filter, and that just basically sat there, and it's kind of a weird one, and it felt like through the restrictions of the equipment, I'd sort of set up this thing that was sort of doing its own thing, but you could then intervene with it and sort of go, right, this is doing that as a broad brush kind of approach. But actually, in terms of tweaking the fine details, you could dive in, and it's great fun, really.
Well, I'm gonna let Rob talk to you about this, because I'm out of my comfort zone already. Apart from just the one point in there, and it did look. There was one point your hands moved so quick over the thing, it looked like there was almost like a "what on earth's that doing?" point, and that could have been in there, because I know Rob's had that with his modular gear before. That all of a sudden you get a thing
there are a couple
should I be doing that?
In there where I've looked at it and got, I just grabbed the wrong thing.
But I didn't hear the difference, but it's just your hands were going so quick. I thought, hello, what's going on here?
Yeah, no, there are a few bits where it's actually just trying to keep the honesty of doing a performance, you know. So yeah, no.
I love the. I think you're spot on that with modular. Sometimes it's part you, part the machine, because it's electrical currents doing the thing, and you kind of know what it's kind of going to do, but you don't know exactly what it's going to kind of do. So you are trying to rein it in. So was the bass going through the WASP filter?
The bass was absolutely going through the WASP filter.
Yeah, he made me buy one of those, so thank you. Someone
Doctor
have got another sale. I've been watching on track with the other day, because it's just like
in terms of what you can pay for some modules, for bang for the buck, that filter is a great thing.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not super expensive on the grand scheme of those sort of things. And what you can do with it, I mean, that is pretty much builds most of the melody, lead, bass out of that through there.
Yeah. And the tone is so kind of rich and full. But the bit I think people are particularly interested in is how you got so many drum sounds. And I've had plats, I kind of know how you've done it, but just explain to people how you use the kind of plats and basically just turn that one module into a drum machine, so people notice, but the plats module was where the lights kept dancing up and down.
Okay,
So a lot of people don't realise how that kind of works.
I had a beat step, which was a thing on the bottom left that had the.
Right. Well, we just had a question about that. Yeah, Malleus was just asking about. Hello, Malleus.
Yeah. So basically, all that was doing was kicking out a clock tick so that something happened on the beat, but there were 60. There's the option of having 16 different steps in that, and I basically only had 13 of them doing it and set on random. So 3 out of every 16 steps it wouldn't do anything. So that's fine. So that kind of brings in a bit of fun. So that was basically then firing off what was happening on the plats. Where that got a bit fun was the fact that I had a low frequency oscillator going through that was being used to sample and hold to tell plats what to do. But that oscillator was absolutely nothing to do with the timing that the tick,
Okay,
tick
that
was
was
going on.
locking in a particular voltage, say player, snare, or hat, or whatever.
Yeah, so that was basically saying,
people don't know, it's got 8 different drum. It's got 2 different sides, isn't it? Because 8 different synth voices, then 8 different drum sounds in it. So you basically just say, basically, you very clever how you patched it, but you were cycling through the different available
just cycling
drum
through the
sounds to make
different
it like a drum
voices.
machine. Yeah.
But I was doing that in a way that was not in sync to the beat.
Yeah.
So that it kind of bipped and bopped about.
Yeah.
In that when the beat hit, you could be quite sure if you had sort of an infinite amount of processing power and what have you in your brain.
Yeah.
So it's utterly deterministic, but really over a very long period. And it just had this sort of bippy thing, and got this sort of weird, quite sort of rolling rhythm thing going to it. That sort of with a bit of time and experimentation, just working with the setup, was like, wow, actually that feels like it could work really nicely. And given that limited setup, got a lot of sound out for very few individual modules, which was great.
How many different modules were within there, though, Ed? Because although you say it's a limited setup, that was still a fairly significant piece of equipment. That as you say, you pulled a lot of sound out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got no idea. I probably could turn around and start counting, but then probably people could over the top of my head. The thing that I find with a lot of modular stuff is the fact that generally you tend to get modules that do sort of one thing well. So you'll have something that does a square wave or a sine wave, or it's a machine that goes beep. And then to try and get a lot of quickly different things out, I often find quite hard. So in terms of then trying to get a lot of things that are different out quickly, which then streams, that's the absolute antithesis of trying to put a drum track together. Seemed quite challenging, but so kind of lucked out on that, really.
As a question from somebody who doesn't understand that stuff very well, then, Ed, so with the pieces of equipment you've got there, when you say it's difficult to get something different out, so are you saying that because each piece is so specifically very good at one thing, that it's difficult to actually expand out from that and create a very different piece of music every time? Or is that a difference in the sound, or a difference in the way that piece of music comes together in the way that it's orchestrated together? Do you know what I'm trying to say? I've not explained that particularly well.
No, that's a very interesting one, I think. Because I think that's partly in the imagination of what you're doing. So if you've got a bit of kit that you look at and listen to and it sounds like it does X, it's very hard to then sort of break out of that and then reimagine it doing something else. The most obvious one, just pulling examples out the air, so people have, say, an oscillator, so something that basically makes a wave that goes up and down, whatnot. You can use that quickly, and you can use it to make a pitch. Or you can use it slowly, apply it to something else, and all of a sudden, rather than it just being a pitch, you've now got a pitch that with that wave kind of goes, and it's just trying to gradually reimagine how you use those tools, because they're incredibly powerful and they all kind of patch in one to the other.
I think the bit that people have commented on, I particularly like watching you, and I've got a bigger modular setup, but I think when I watch you do yours, it kind of, every element, you can see every element that you're using, and every module is used for a particular effect, and you can really kind of tell the bits you're using to do the particular different elements of the performance. I love the kind of groove of that track, and the way that there was timing, but there was an element of random, and it.
Thank you.
The bass line in the drums, although the drums had that element of random in them, the timing and the interplay between them kept this lovely rolling rhythm and groove to it. So,
Do you know what'd be amazing? Is Sword Swinging Robot, who we've got coming up a little bit later, he's superb at remixing songs. Taking a song and then just reimagining that song. I would love to hear a remix of his of that song you've just done there, Ed, because that was just a great song. But he can reimagine stuff in such a completely different way once he takes it and rambles it up. And
by all means, Matt, I guess you're listening. If you got your kids to bed yet or not, feel free. I will send you the files.
It's the next collab, isn't it? The remix of each other's work or doing stuff together. So.
It is. Well, wait until you hear the state of the song I've put together for Tuesday night. You don't want to hear a remix I've done. That's the last thing you want to be hearing.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, mate. Ed, that was superb. Amazing. Really, genuinely was. I thoroughly enjoyed that.
That was quite terrifying to do, but it was immensely enjoyable at the same time. So thank you. And
that was absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
Thanks for doing the show with us tonight, Ed. I think.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for suggesting it.
Oh no, it's lovely. I think it's quite unique that in kind of North Wales, and which can be a bit of a kind of cultural wasteland at times with sort of originality of music, should we say, not other things, but to have two kind of shows so close to each other doing slightly different things, but with a very similar intent of kind of building a community of people who just kind of get together and share this kind of thing. It's ace. So it's just a really, really fab to do this show tonight and the one on Tuesday as well. So
absolutely, yeah. And we also have a show in between on Monday night as well. So we have the Only Human Radio show on Monday night, 8 p.m. YouTube, Circle 8 Radio, wherever else you can find it. So that's also there as well. So it's really nice to see the communities coming together. We've got 3 full nights of shows, which is astonishing. If you'd have said this a year ago, that we'd have had, a live show tonight. Tomorrow night's pre-recorded. It has to be because it just needs a lot of editing down because of me mostly. And then Tuesday night is another live show. So if you'd have said a year ago we'd be doing this in 3 nights in a row and we'd have so many people listening in and enjoying this, I wouldn't have believed you. It's just phenomenal. So thanks to everybody who puts in stuff to do these shows, but also everybody that choosing to listen. And I hope you enjoy it as much as we do making the shows as well. So thank you very much, Ed. That was superb. Thank you very much, Rob. Thank you for your insightful interview.
Thank you.
As always. And we have another classic coming up. So we've got Charles coming up.
Yeah.
Very good. Your very good friend. Our very good friend, Charles.
Yes. Yeah. We have Charles Gershom and a piece of his entitled Return of Thoth, which I hope I pronounced correctly.
Has he spelt it right? I think
possibly. I don't know if there's quite frankly, Facebook Messenger does not do hieroglyphics, so
no. Charles,
I'm going to leave that one there.
Yes, Charles, yes, I have spelled it right. Fair enough. Point well made. Right, tell you what, if you ever listen, then this is Charles. This is Thoth. This is going to be amazing. Well, I know it's amazing. I've already listened to it. Here we go.
Synthetic life.
So many questions. So many questions. That
and
was
good ones. Yeah.
Oh man alive. That was utterly awesome. That was utterly awesome. That really was. Ed, I'm going to let you start because otherwise I'm just going to start rambling on for about 10 minutes because I literally do have a list of questions.
Yeah. I mean, I was intrigued by that. I mean, it's yeah. Were the dancing people you?
They were. The dancing little people were me. They were.
No, it's one of those sort of really superficial things, but you kind of look going, is it? And it just
I spent half an hour outside the back in the back holding lighting stands to get a 3D scan.
That is
painful. I did not think it through.
It worked.
It really did. Yeah. So I mean, what was the process behind doing that? Because it looks like you got a pretty minimal setup there, but there's obviously been a lot going into it, which
over the last few years I've been doing mostly drone and ambient and soundscape work, and through that process I've built a lot of equipment, and as you may know, quite a lot of that equipment tends to not work very long. And over the years, I've been constantly on the search for a device to kind of gather everything together so I can sample and capture those short-lived instruments so I can use them in the future. And I think it was last year sometime I did a Modulate with some kind of test narrative pieces where I was doing soundscapes as if they were soundtracks. And that was kind of the start of the journey of trying to create a setup which could actually be used as a performance rig, because whenever I plug my rig into things, as you well know, there's horrible noises that come from it, and it could destroy a PA, and things would just stop working, and then I would walk off into the night and be very sad about it. And this little miniature setup is kind of my attempt at trying to create a performance rig which is super minimal. And it is
actually that little setup, isn't it, right there somewhere?
Are you trying to say, Charles, that you built that?
No, it's a mixture of well, there was I can't remember.
Yes and no, but don't let him tell you he didn't.
There's a YouTube channel who I was watching. I can't remember who it was, but there was someone that just said when you're approaching modular, Eurorack modular equipment, you might come at it the wrong way, and lots of people buy individual modules hoping that individual module does the thing that they want in their set. And it just said, well, that seems like nonsense. This guy was saying, you build a Eurorack set because you're building your dream machine, and if you treat every module you get as a subsection of that machine, then your overall rack is effectively your dream machine. And that's kind of what I tried to create with this. So this is my performance machine. It's centered around a bitbox sampler, which I can gather all the things I want in it with effectively unlimited space. And then I use things like this behind me to do sound design. So I do sound design, capture it, and then create a set. And this whole Modulate Oscilloscope crossover has pushed me so far out of my comfort zone. I've literally thrown out my old studio monitors and bought new ones because it showed me that I could get away with a lot in sound art that I couldn't by trying to put together and engineer a track. Because a lot of in fact, all of what I've done before is improvised performance rather than sitting down, putting a track together, composition, engineering it, and practicing it, which is it's really weird. It's I'm used to playing a single thing and it disappearing off into the ether. And putting this together over a period of a few weeks and repeatedly playing it and practicing it and trying it and tweaking it and hating myself for creating the worst drums in the world for a long time, and then finding there was one sound which kind of pulled it all together, and throwing out 3 different sequences in the search for trying to find the right sequencer, and ending up with a really, really, really simple little 8-channel trigger sequencer, the simplest sorts of things. And this whole process kind of taught me to fine tune my gear and fine tune the workflow, and it's left an enduring impression from that, which I'm hoping to take back into the sound art, because now I've got a much more controllable, finite kind of constraint. and that was kind of the workflow. The idea of the track was more of a there was a really interesting quote which my dad had told me about, which was a quote from the Egyptian god Thoth to Amun, and he brought the creation of writing to the human race. And it was the idea that, you know, the Thoth was like, here, look, writing's going to make you all smarter and it's going to be incredible. And Amun was like, no, it's going to make you all forgetful because you're going to rely on it. And it rings really true, the idea of the kind of modern technology. So there's the idea of the synthetic life. It's that kind of comment on the singularity and the end point of where technology and artificial life can come to, and it's the idea that we believe in the technology, but it's actually kind of destroys us a little bit. As you know, it's hard to get away from being conceptual when I've spent my time, all my creative life, being a contemporary artist. So there had to be some concept in there.
Well, it was
amazing. Kurzweil synth, I guess.
Well, the whole thing felt to me like I'd made a new friend in a coffee shop, and he said, "Come back to my flat and we'll play music together." And I got back to his flat and realised he terrified the living life out of me. That's what that made me feel like.
All right. I'm content with that.
But in a really nice way. Yeah, but honestly, it was an amazing piece of music. Utterly amazing. So the bass line in that as well, right from the start, again, and it was the same on yours there. The bass line pulled that whole thing together. The bass line on yours was phenomenal. So which piece of kit were you doing to create the bass line?
The bass line was a mixture of a neutron, some little oscillators I built out of Arduinos, laid up a little bit, and then destroyed, and then basically the majority of it was that being fed through a Dreadbox filter, Edumona, the little chromatic modules. And it's the combination of that and overcooking it a bit in the bitbox just seemed to really make it crunchy. Like, and I tend to overcook everything a little bit just to overdrive everything. You know, there's no cheaper overdrive than just clipping everything a little bit.
Good old
I like my 8-bit dirty stuff.
And the sample. Sorry, go on, John Charles.
So I was just saying, because you mentioned the neutron earlier, and the neutron has been like my main workhorse of creating sounds for a good year or so now, and because it's an amazing bass drum, it's an amazing kind of hi-hat, snare, percussion, and it's an amazing throbbing drone. You know, it can be everything. That's usually is the start of where a lot of the sounds come from.
Oh, really? Because and again, it's an extremely affordable piece of kit, really, for what it can do. It's an amazing piece of kit, and again, that's semi-modular.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, most I try and, other than the bitbox, which is a bit of splashing out, most of my gear is either recovered, rebuilt, handmade. Kind of. I try and keep everything pretty budget.
Well, considering that was put together on a budget that was utterly phenomenal, wish I could do something like that on a budget. Sorry, Ed, you were about to say.
No, I was going to say, I think it's part of this is sort of, part of the joy of this is actually trying to go out and put this stuff together as sort of economically as possible. In that I tend to have a rule to myself of trying to only buy stuff second hand. In that, number one, it makes it more justifiable, and also you actually then get to engage with other people and get these sort of stories and ideas, and you kind of bridge out into things, which is really quite nice and quite good fun.
Did you enjoy it, Charles? That's the most important thing.
Yes and no.
There was hesitation in there.
Well, I started it and I was really enjoying it, and then I had 2 weeks where I couldn't even look at it. I then threw out my speakers. I destroyed my sequencer. This box was taken completely apart, and I ended up, as I said, I went through 3 different sequences. The beat step failed me. Couldn't get to grips with it. Just didn't make friends with the track. I was using Novation Circuit for a while, which I love, but I'm just so used to using it in a different way. I even found an obscure church organ 4-track sequencer for a while, which is fantastic, but it didn't really hold. It didn't have much of clocking options. And in the end, I've just ended up with a Robu LL8, which is just the most basic sequencer I think there is. But it's glorious in that. It's just like a proper old school little just trigger drum machine sequencer, no frills, just does what you tell it.
But it all came together amazingly. So I know I enjoyed it. I know, Ed, I'm sure you enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it immensely. And it's actually really nice sort of seeing somebody that you've worked with and done kind of lots of creative stuff with, going through similar kind of struggles, but actually coming out with something that probably for my money is better than what I did. But actually, yeah, engaging with this stuff, and it was really good, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Charles. Absolute pleasure talking to you, as always.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much.
Brilliant. That was great, Ed, wasn't it? Really enjoyed
that. I thoroughly enjoyed that. Yeah,
I was smiling all the way through that. That was just utterly astounding. I was looking at my book then. I've got no notes. I've got no notes to look at, Ed. I'm going to have to look at a different screen.
Okay. Yeah, I've got some here. Do you want some?
Oh, thank goodness for that. It's all right.
Yes.
I think I've got it. But you can pronounce it. Go on, you go for it.
Okay, well, next up we have a piece by Frood, so otherwise known as Glyn Roberts, and unless I've got it terribly wrong, pronounced Ostach, which is a wall of noise created by Frood as a reaction to 2020.
You pronounced that considerably better than I would ever have even attempted, Ed, so I'm glad I passed that over.
Well, I don't know, having found out that I've been mispronouncing one person who's been involved in this name for the best part of a year. I don't know, purely because no one's come to contradict us yet, so we'll go with that. So yeah, we'll have a word with Glyn afterwards as Frood, and I don't know, should we jump into it? Or
absolutely, let's have a listen.
Brilliant.
I won't even try and pronounce it again. Let's just listen to it.
Ostach.
How are you?
How are
Thank
you?
you very, very much.
Yeah, well, no, it's a pleasure to be on tonight.
That was astonishing. I started making notes, and then I realised about a minute in that I'd stopped making notes, and I was just sat there shaking my head and sitting back in an absolute astonishment and awe.
Well, but many thanks for that, because it's sort of because I go to the name Frood, which is a bit it's Welsh for stream, so it's a bit of stream of consciousness. So I like to set things up, and then I just let things evolve really. Sort of, I don't plan too much. I just like to get the stuff out.
Well, that was wonderfully cathartic. You know, that was great.
Well, I just thought sort of it does, you know, sort of, I don't want to be too deep, but it's kind of does reflect 2020 in the fact that sort of we've all been a bit cocooned, and then I put the names of the various modules that I was using because they haven't become my friends, but I've been getting to know them a lot more over the last 9 months. I've really got to know my modular quite well. But sort of, as Charles was saying, I'm trying to get hold of the right sequencer for me, and the IntelliGel Metropolis is not quite doing it for me. And anyway, but sort of, I've got to know the machines a lot better, and I just like just getting the different sounds as you're not supposed to. I've just bought 2 Boss RPS 10s. They're like a vintage delay machine pitch shifter. So I use quite a lot of that in this one with the ALM oscillator and the Dope dark energy. So they were sort of like battling against each other. So that was quite a main part of what I was doing.
Towards the end, and again, this just could be me, but it kind of felt almost like
Julian seems to have just disappeared for a
second.
second.
Frozen.
Yeah.
I thought the frozen. Then I thought I had for a second.
Oh no, he's back. He's back. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, I was just saying. Towards the end, it actually sounded almost like marching music, almost like Germanic marching music inside there.
Well, I've always had a bit of a problem with rhythm and stuff, and I've always. I was trying to work on some electronic music in the 90s or whatever, and I thought I must have rhythm, and that kind of sort of clouded my vision about sort of what I wanted to do really. And then once I got rid of the rhythm part of making music and making more sort of the ambient sort of generative sort of music, it freed me a lot. But now I'm getting back in a little bit to some rhythm and getting the machines to do the rhythm for me. I don't sort of to use any sort of samples, but sort of the marching music. I'm trying to think what part that was, but sort of it was probably the Vesta Casa Dig 420, which is a great machine.
Right.
It's an old digital sampler delay unit, and then it takes CV, and then so from the maths I send a pulse, and and then also at one point I put the lead which goes into the CV into my mouth.
I saw that. Yeah, I was wondering what you were doing with that.
Well, what it is, it's short it a little bit, but then you could change how much you short it by how wet you do it, and it is a bit. It does come across a bit mechaphilia, so I'm not like that at all. But, I wonder for a second. I like the tactile nature of. That's what I like about the modular synths, is because it runs off voltage, and our bodies have a little bit of inherent voltages within that sort of, especially in the wet part of the tongue, when you can really sort of play around a bit with sort of the more you sort of. You the more you not suck, but sort of the more you put the jack plug in your mouth, the deeper the note goes. It's just
does it really?
And I've done it on stage a couple of times, and sort of it's kind of sort of it's a bit sort of it's not right in a way because it looks like I'm trying to electrocute myself, but sort of it's a really good way of connecting yourself to the equipment.
I was just going to say that. Yeah,
Quite
I mean
literally.
that's man and machine. That
Well,
literally is man and
yeah.
machine. You're becoming part of the performance yourself, then, aren't you?
Yeah.
Well, I do like to be part of the performance. I think sort of getting the music to make me move and me moving with the music is good because this is I'm a big fan of the Dope ribbon controller. This is great. So I've been using it recently with the Schlappy Engineering Interstellar Radio. Oh my God, that is so good. So big fan of Schlappy Engineering stuff. Yeah, so but I do like my kit, but sort of I'm just trying to weed things out, and I did like what Charles was saying about sort of keeping things small, because the more equipment you've got, the more sort of yeah. And I just happened to come across Junkie XL, JXL. There's something on YouTube. He's selling a lot of his equipment.
Yes.
And, so that was quite fascinating. I don't follow him on YouTube or anything, and I just saw notifications of it. I thought, I better have a look at that. And he's getting rid of a lot of his equipment because it's that sort of you get all this gear all the time, and it really bogs you down, and it's sort of it really slows down the process. And what I find is when I have only 2 or 3 pieces of equipment, just I could do a lot more then.
Absolutely.
If I had 8 pieces of equipment, I wouldn't do twice as much as 4 pieces of equipment.
Exactly.
So I think I would do the same amount for 8, 16, whatever. But I'll probably do less with 16.
Well, exactly. I mean, I don't know if you were there, Ed, but we did a Modulate night where we had, when we were able to do live stuff and all meet up, but we did a Modulate night where it was a 2-box performance. So you were only able to bring 2 boxes, and that
yes, I wasn't there, but I heard about it. And
so you couldn't bring I couldn't bring Mackay Force because that's like about 8, 20 different things in one, but you could bring 2 separate boxes, and that's all you had. You had to create something with that, and the creativity that came out of that restriction was fantastic. It was just amazing. Absolutely. And that's the trouble. I was talking to actually Andy Peggs about it the other night. I think it's on here tonight somewhere with it.
Yes, he is.
We were saying that the trouble when you buy a load of pieces of kit and you get them all, because you've invested a fair amount of money in that, you kind of think, well, that cost 100 quid and that cost 500 quid. I better use that. And you tend to try and include it in every single performance, which doesn't enhance it because you're using it for the sake of using it. Whereas if you just restrict yourself down and say, actually, all I'm going to use is that, nothing else, then all of a sudden your creativity is the thing that's most important, not the piece of equipment.
Yeah, having some restriction, it really helps, sort of because you can get so sidetracked with, the unlimited amounts of sort of samples you get, so you get seduced by, 50 gig of samples or whatever, so no, you don't want that. You want to keep it simple. So I do have a project in mind with using dictaphones and stuff. So that is my next thing at the moment, and that the limitation of what the dictaphone could do is fantastic. So that's sort of
that'll be very interesting.
Working on that at the moment.
Well, on our Only Human radio show, which is on tomorrow night at 8 o'clock on Circulate Radio and also YouTube, not wishing to give a plug at all, but anyway, it's out there. On there, we've got there's a performer we've had twice on before, and he does everything on an iPhone, no other piece of equipment, just an iPhone. Now, honest to God, the tunes he produces out of that are absolutely astonishing. And that's not using samples, that's creating stuff directly on an iPhone. It's amazing. I
just find sort of everything just bit small. I just like big knob because I used to work in the BBC in the 80s, and then when I joined in 81, they had sort of these massive 1/4-inch tape machines and big faders. Oh, happy days, So I just like the big sort of.
There is something very nice about that tactile feel, isn't there?
Yes, it was stuff from the sort of the 40s and 50s. So it was a bit of a hangover because the BBC didn't move forward very quickly. So the stuff I was using in the early 80s was from the sort of 60s. It was great.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Sorry, yes, I think you're going where I am.
Absolutely. Well, Do you know what a fascinating channel? I could do this all night. I literally could sit here all night and chat about this.
Thanks very much. It's been great talking to you guys. Sort of because I've been sort of filming all day today, so I've been flat out. So and so I thought, oh god, I'm got a gig tonight.
Oh no. Well, thank you very much for joining us. You know?
So glad I didn't bumper or anything, but no, that's fantastic. So it's nice to see you guys. So
absolutely. And thank you so much.
Breathe, Glenn. It's all good.
Honestly, Glenn, that was amazing. That was genuinely amazing.
Brilliant.
I'm
so much.
glad you enjoyed it. Glad you enjoyed it. And so some really nice comments actually. Sort of.
Just going to say the same thing. Amazing comments, and I'm going
to do more. I'm going to do more. So much more to do. So much more to do.
Brilliant.
Well, absolutely, and I've had a message just to mention as well. I've just had a message through from Circulate Radio as well, just to say to Glyn that was absolutely astonishing, and that they enjoyed it thoroughly as well. From Dan Shot there, so thank you very much, Dan. So that was amazing. Honestly, Ed, that was amazing.
That, you know, couldn't get a word in edgeways, but I so enjoyed it.
it was amazing.
That was immensely good fun.
It was. So what have we got coming up now, Ed?
I believe we have Sword Swinging Robots, unless I'm very much mistaken.
I think we do.
So our very own Matt, and a piece called Firefly, which is apparently inspired by the Mission Impossible soundtrack.
Wow.
As he says, specifically, it's 5/4 time signature, not easy to program on 16-beat step sequences, which... Yeah, even my dodgy maths can kind of feel that doesn't really quite work.
He always says things aren't easy. Then he produces something utterly amazing. He does it every single time.
Absolutely.
Every time.
I've not actually had the chance to listen to this one through. There's a few bits I've dipped into that have been on the Google Drive as people have been putting stuff together. I haven't heard this, so I'm quite excited to have a listen to it.
Well, I'll tell you what, shall we?
I think we should, you know.
Why don't we?
So, Sword Swinging Robot and Firefly, I guess.
Boom.
Boom.
And then there's always one exception to the rule who has masses of equipment and can do absolutely everything with every single piece of equipment. And it's always you, Matt.
Oh, too kind.
See, it's true. All the best people have the speakers behind them.
Oh, yeah.
I've been trying to get it so that the cameras, so that they're symmetrical, and have been
absolutely. That was awesome, amazing. Matt. Thank you so much, Matt.
I don't know where we start. I don't know where we all start with that. Ed, go on. You go first. Go on.
Firstly, that was an amazing piece. There's some wonderful textures in there. I was still trying to scratch my head, going, "My goodness, how did you make that 5/4 work in a 16-beat step sequencer?"
So how did you do it?
How? Yeah.
You just have to work in 20s instead of 16s, and then I could get on like the 64-step sequencer on the Electron kit. I could do up to 40. So I got 40 steps per pattern, which worked for that. But you could see in some of there, I'm having to chain 4 patterns at the same time, because I could only get so many steps.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot going on there. Yeah, it's a pretty frantic change. Well, not frantic, but in-depth changes, which is quite cool to actually be able to see what's happening. You know, so it's really enjoyable. As Dave said, lovely timing on a slow 5.
Yeah. I mean, that was complex. Sorry, Rob. I just said that was a massively complex piece, though. It really was a very complicated piece of music. I know you're going to go, "That wasn't actually," but it was, Matt. I'm afraid it was.
No, fair enough. It's I can say it's simple because there's a main bit and you go backwards and forwards and you move bits in and out. But I guess it's simple if you've practiced it a bunch of times. Yeah,
exactly. Sorry, Rob, I interrupted you.
No, I was going to say I have enough trouble learning to count to 16 to know when to bring parts in and out. So to completely break that by going to 20, I think that just ruined me entirely. But yeah, brilliant track. And it's
programming drums in that was difficult. Like, where does the snare go once you've gotten over the pattern into the next one, and once you then go into the next one and the next one, just like,
that's what I just wrecked my head
on this. I don't even know.
I just find that incredibly frustrating, and I just had sleepless nights over the whole thing. I don't know if I'd enjoy that.
That's where you start twitching in bunches of 3s and 2s, going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
So, was it complicated to write, Matt? And you're just going to say no again, aren't you?
He's going to say yes.
I wrote it in Ableton.
Right.
And then I transferred it over to the Live Gear after that. So at least I had a proper GUI in front of me when I was trying to program it.
So what was that? So a MIDI patch or a...
Yeah. That was in a hotel in Swansea. And
really?
I was listening to a podcast where they were talking to a composer about movie scores on the way down on the train. And one of the things that they mentioned was Mission Impossible is in 5/4, and it creates that kind of kinetic feeling of the fuse burning down and all that stuff. So I thought, "Ooh, smart! I'll have a go at that."
So, how many different pieces of equipment were you using there?
I got the analog for doing all my synth bits, and the Digitone doing the FM bits. The analog rhythm doing the drums, the Octatrack playing some sampled parts, and then the push and a laptop playing the strings at the end.
No, so TB3.
No TB3 for that one. It was sitting there. I did have 303 on that one originally, but it's one of the few tracks of mine that doesn't have it in the current iteration.
So excuse my ignorance. So when you bounce that out at Ableton, then you build that in Ableton, and you must have I guess sequenced in your bass line and whatever, and thought whilst you were doing it, right? The bass line's going to go to that piece of equipment, and the lead's going to go to that piece of equipment, and the percussion's going to go to that. Did you do it that way, or?
No, it was actually written, I think, before I had that kit, because the original track is about 4 years old, and then it got moved over when I wanted to do it live, and that's when you think, oh, it's easy when you're in a sequencer, but then when you've just got little light up bits on your 16 pads, it's not quite as simple. I was like, why did I do this? Why didn't I do it in 4/4?
Because I'm not used to...
be.
That's all right. Don't worry. That's all right. You probably, I mean, you're home alone with it as well. You probably should attend to it at some point, Matt. But
he's fine. The dog's looking after him. He'll be fine. I shouldn't say that, actually. My wife's with him.
Wait, Matt, run, do what you should be doing.
Quick and apologise. It wasn't me. There you go. Poor little man. Way past his bedtime.
This is the best album promo ever, Matt.
Well, it is.
Complete cringe.
It is beautifully segued in there, Rob, as well.
Yeah, I will abandon my own child to promo my album.
Seamless, you know.
Matt's not going to promote himself, so it's up to the three of us to actually let the world know what's coming up. So, Matt,
thank you.
When can we hear the masterpiece that is the Sorting and Robot album that I've been fortunate enough to be listening to on repeat for a while, so not the finished version. Not the finished version. I hasten to add.
No, you had the demo with a couple of live tracks in there. It will be. I'm determined it will be out on Friday. I'm giving myself a harsh deadline, so I actually finish the thing. So it'll be on Bandcamp on Friday. Hopefully with CD and digital, and maybe some bonus live bits if you do want to pick it up.
Well, that's very exciting. So if we wanted to find you on Bandcamp, Matt, what do we search for?
Hopefully it'll be /Sword Swinging Robot. I haven't actually made it yet.
That'd be the obvious thing to do, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I probably won't get too creative. So yeah, it'll be /Sword Swinging Robot, and it'll be my debut album.
There's Facebook links and all sorts of that going along there at the moment. Going that way.
Yes, if you come find me on Facebook. All the details will be on there.
Even if you can't find him on Bandcamp, I would imagine that you'd probably post a link on there to the Bandcamp.
Yeah, definitely.
There we are then.
We'll spam it on Modulate and everything else. And I mean, as I say, I've heard the demos of it, and it's just fab to hear all the tracks that you've done live for various kind of Modulate shows and Only Human shows and other stuff over the years. Just hear them all in one place. It's just... it kind of just takes you back to all those kind of nights in Sheldon's or the Story House. And I know you performed with the Accretion Entropy guys in Conway and that kind of thing. It's just brilliant just to have them all together.
Martin from Fourth Eden's just asked, is there a CD coming out as well? I think you said there is, Matt.
Yes, there will be.
Right, okay, brilliant. There you go, Martin.
A little digit pack going on.
That can be on your Christmas list, Martin. There you go.
Yes, Christmas comes
early. Actually, whilst I'm thinking about it, as he's mentioned that, let me just see if I can grip him there. There we go. I should just quickly promote Martin's 2 CDs. There we go. There's one of them. And then there's the other one. So there you go. Again, have a look at Fourth Eden on Bandcamp. Also, CDs available. Martin is amazing
When's next
musician.
Bandcamp Friday? Talking to people on Bandcamp.
Don't know.
I think it's first week in December, isn't it?
First week in December.
Yeah. So
getting close.
If you are going to, I mean, last month we did a bit of a kind of share of links of everyone who associated with either Oscilloscope, Any Human, Modulate. So I think we'll do the same thing again. And
there we are. Mark up your advent calendars.
Yeah, and if you're going to get stuff, it's great because the artist gets all the proceeds if you do it on Bandcamp Friday rather than Bandcamp taking the cut. So it's very generous of Bandcamp to forego that for one day. So well worth doing. Shopping basket.
Superb song as always. Very much looking forward to your album coming out. Very much like your speakers as well. Quite jealous of your speakers, if I'm honest. What are they? Come on, Matt, quickly tell us, what are those speakers?
These are my Behringer Truth, whatever they are, 2031s that are, I don't even know how old, like 15 years old, but they still work. I don't get to use them very much, but...
Well, not with a baby in the house, no. Quite right.
No. I've managed to turn them on this week and just been like, oh, I don't recognise the sound of these anymore. I don't like it. I turn them off again.
Mixing on it's a strange old thing, swapping mixing.
Yeah.
Well, that was superb, Matt. Thank you very much indeed, Rob. Thank you very much for joining us again. That was a thoroughly enjoyable performance. As always, very much looking forward to your CD and album coming. They've vanished then. That's it. It's back to us again. Feels a little bit lonely without them now, doesn't it? Just you and me.
It does. It's all this space. I mean, you can go up there, go down there. I don't know quite what to do with myself. No, that was astounding. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was. Fact, what we got coming up? Sorry, go on, Rob. Ed.
No, I'm still at Rob. What have we got coming up? We have Rob, actually.
There we go.
So there's
it is Rob. It's the other Rob.
I would say Freudian slip, but that sounds even more wrong. So yeah, next up we have Rob Spaull, and a piece which Stratum Corneum, which I may have mispronounced. I may not have done. We never know. Hopefully we'll hear from him afterwards, I guess.
Well, I'm sure he'll explain all in about 5 to 7 minutes time.
Oh, no, not 5 to 7. I've really? Actually got the time 14 minutes.
In approximately 14 minutes time. We've got double the fun then, Ed. That's what we've got there.
Absolutely, yeah. And I believe that is possibly, one of maybe our last one. I'm not sure. We shall see what's happening.
I think it is our last one. I think it is. Anyway, I've been looking forward to this all night. I've had a little sneak peek of this one earlier on, and
I've seen little bits. I have the great joy of working in a trio with Rob, and occasionally there's been little bits sneaking through on Facebook Messenger, kind of going, "Oh yeah, this," and it's been quite tantalising, and I've deliberately not watched it, not because I don't have time, but I've been trying not to look at it just so I can enjoy it. And,
well, I think we've got something very, very special coming up here.
Yes.
So this is Rob Spaull. I know I'm going to enjoy this. I know Ed's going to enjoy this, and I know you're going to enjoy this. Let's have a listen.
Yay!
That was amazing, Rob.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was brilliant.
Tell you what, Ed, there's a man who knows his way around a piece of equipment.
Absolutely, yes. I'm constantly in awe, you know. Yeah, what intrigued me with that was because obviously running the gamut this evening, we've had people like me that are basically jumping on top of stuff and trying to tame it, and you've had people like Matt who have got this pre-planned setup MIDI file thing. I mean, you're obviously playing quite a bit of it in. I mean, how much is very strictly pre-planned and how much you on the fly with that?
So my normal approach to all this stuff is turn the gear on and just jam for half an hour, 45 minutes, make whatever from scratch, no presets, or basically mashing up presets. But this kind of, the Modulate switch for me was to kind of go, do you know what, I'm actually going to start with some sounds that I've pre-prepared rather than just build them all on the fly. So it was like a daring to do that. And then I think I had a bit of a drum, the drums pre-programmed, the basic ones, and then the other ones were procedurally generated from Pamela and the Bitbox. But yeah, it was mainly, and I'd come up with a cool sort of idea of what I wanted to do, sort of a kind of, I mean, Rob, you mentioned it, sort of euphoric kind of Salt Tank Chicane sort of era stuff. I'm a big fan of that. So yeah, so that's basically it. Had more of a intention than I would usually have.
So was there a piece of equipment in there that was controlling most of what was going on? Was there like a heart to the whole thing? What was that?
So that's Hermod, the Squarp sequencer, Squarp
Right.
Hermod, which is an 8-channel MIDI or analog sequencer, and it's a new thing because I mean I had my when I was doing stuff with Ed and Charlie with the sort of Creation Entropy stuff, I had my box running just as I was enjoying it, and you know it was good and it ran tight and etc. etc. I was like, I'm getting a bit bored of this bit of gear, or that's not quite flowing well enough for me. So I took out one piece of gear, and then a few other bits fell out, and then it just wasn't working anymore. I was like, it's not doing what I want it to do fast enough. So I started building a sequencer, and that it worked, but it was just like, right, I needed to do all these things, and finding the time to sort of sit down and get back into the code of it and go, right, okay, I've got half an hour on a Sunday, I can't even get back up to speed with this. I'm going to sack all of that off and just get something in the core of it so I can enjoy it again. So that became Hermod after lots of searching, and it is absolutely nailed it because it delivers the 8 channels, but any of the 8 channels can be analog or they can be MIDI. So the whole rig is controlled off Hermod. The only thing that isn't is the cycles, the electron cycles, which is just given a clock from. It's actually given a clock from the Hermod as well, but that's the only thing that sequences itself. Everything else is from that.
The sequencer on that is superb anyway, isn't it? So I mean, they're brilliant. The electron sequences,
parameter locking, all that fun stuff. Yeah, lots of sort of chance options and things like that, which are great.
I love the chat tonight about the endless search for the perfect sequencer. So it's something Rob will know. I bought gear off him. He's bought gear off me. I mean, pretty much every sequencer going. Between me and Rob, we probably worked it, or Charles has hacked it to pieces to find out how it works and rebuilt it some other way again. But you're right. It's funny what you said, because the bit you said around how you took something out and took something else out, and then the whole thing fell apart. Totally resonate with that, because I've done that a couple of times where it's like you remove one thing and it's like, oh God, now I've got to take that out and that out, and then I have to find a solution for that problem and for that problem, and then you find it, and then you find, I mean, you clearly had a happy place with the setup in terms of what you did tonight, because not only was it euphoric music, but you just seemed totally in control and at ease with what was coming out. It was lovely performance. So yeah.
There was a question just popped up then as well about the screen that you have in the center of the setup.
Yeah.
And what was that screen?
So that's another one of the things that has been missing from my rig, is because I'm originally a pianist and I love playing the piano. Having a really nice piano, but I don't want to drag Ableton into it anymore. I don't want that kind of, I've got to rely on a laptop. I'm just trying to go doorless. And because for a long time with the accretion entropy stuff, I just used Ableton and we all synced off that. So I totally fell in love with the Modart Piano Tech plugin, which is absolutely beautiful. It's a simulated piano, so there's no samples. Everything is mathematically generated, so no note is ever the same twice, and you can build the most weird and insane piano out of it. And you can hit the random button, and then it just totally transforms all of the simulation of the piano, and you get something really wacky or weird, but it still plays nicely and sounds beautiful. Sometimes sounds weird, but that can run on a Raspberry Pi. So I've got a Raspberry Pi 3 with a 7-inch touchscreen, and so that also plugged into the HerMod. So that's sequenced by the HerMod, and it just works flawlessly. It sounds fantastic because it's got these beautiful reverb settings for cathedrals or rooms or Taj Mahal or whatever, and it runs on the Raspberry Pi. It runs about quite happily 28-note polyphony with some decent reverbs on it.
Really?
That's a lot of fingers.
It's a lot of fingers. Not how many fingers when you hold down a sustain pedal and go la la la. But yeah.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, it runs superbly, and that's been a huge missing part of my live thing, was how to get a really nice sounding piano in without, like Glenn was saying before, without bringing 50 gigabytes of piano samples, because I've got all of those on a hard disk over there, but I don't want that anymore.
It did sound beautiful and organic though, at the start, though. It just sounded very kind of natural how it was being played. So,
so I'm fascinated that you can run so that's a VST running on a Raspberry Pi.
It's available as a VST or an audio unit. But what I'm running is actually just it running as an executable file, so it's just a program. Essentially, it takes MIDI in and gives MIDI out, but it's the same thing as the plugin, essentially.
Right. You only live around the corner, Rob. I'm going to have to pop round when we're able to do so and have a look at that, because I'm just fascinated by how you've set that up. That's amazing.
Charles and Rob have promised like a kind of building session when we can all get back together with soldering irons and all kinds, Jules. And I'm totally in there, because I listen to them talk about how they do this stuff, and my brain I buy gear and try to make the best out of it. But I mean, like, building it yourself and actually customizing it to what you want it to do it's just fab. I'm just totally in awe of it. So, yeah,
I mean, it's a little bit over my my intelligence threshold, if I'm quite honest, but I'd still be fascinated to have a look and see how it's done. I don't really think I'm going to be capable of doing it, but yeah, it is absolutely astonishing. I mean, Ed, you've been involved in this. Yeah. Well, I know, but crikey. Well,
everybody started at the ground floor at some point, didn't they? You know, so
I'm not allowed matches. Never mind a soldering iron.
It's just quite an interesting process for me, because like years ago, age, I don't know, 14 or something, I used to do little things at like the school Christmas concert where I'd program my old Korg M1 with some 3-minute piece and sort of play over the top of it, whatever. And I was like, I think this is the first time I've come close to doing that again as a kind of thing, you know. So it's the idea of actually creating and having a structure that you're planning to do, you know, rather than just
Well, that was, I mean, it was an amazing piece of music as well. And, you know, as we were saying at the beginning of it, I was saying to Ed, we've got 5 or 7 minutes, something like that. And I said, no, we've got 14. Do you know, that just flowed. That could have been 5 minutes. They didn't. And that's the beauty of a good piece of music, is that you don't feel the time passing by. You just enjoy the music, and all of a sudden, Christ, where's that time gone? It was, and I genuinely felt that listening to that. I didn't realise where the time had gone. It was just a beautiful piece of music.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No two ways about it. And do you know what, Ed? Not only that, we've had a series of beautiful pieces of music tonight.
Yeah, we genuinely have. I mean, just looking down the list, you know, I mean, we've had stuff from Mark and from Charles and Frood and Sword Swinging Robot, and now with Rob, and it's been amazing.
And yourself as well, Ed.
Well, yes, you know, I feel a bit. I think it's weird. It's one of those things, isn't it, that we're all deliberately pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone. So, I mean, I feel something of an imposter, if you know what I mean. By the merits of that, you know, you feel like you haven't quite done your thing because it's not quite your place, which is it's a strange feeling, but it's quite nice, you know, in some ways.
I think the whole thing though tonight, I mean, so we've kind of given over the show to you guys to come and do your thing, and having no idea what we were gonna kind of get from people, and doing the show live for a change, which has been brilliant, and kind of taking our cues from you guys, how you do Oscilloscope with that, and which has been nice as well. Actually, I've really enjoyed the kind of live interaction a bit, but
it is good fun. It must be said.
No, it's I mean, we like doing it the other way in terms of pre-preparing it, but equally tonight, I think, given the nature of what we're trying to do, which is try something different, it only felt right to speak to people and hear what they've kind of gone through to do it. And it's just been so fascinating listening to everyone's little story of the past few weeks. And I'm sure it'll be the same on Tuesday when we kind of reverse it. And
absolutely, and there actually genuinely is a seamless plug.
I've not planned it. I've got no notes. I've got my iPad tonight, but it's not even open.
But no, absolutely. I mean, it's been a thoroughly. It has been a thoroughly enjoyable. Go on, Ed. You plug away for Tuesday.
No. I mean, this genuinely is a properly shameless plug. In that on Tuesday we are kind of reciprocating, and we've got Oscilloscope at 6:30 on Tuesday, or 6:30 UK time, I should say, if you're watching overseas. And yeah, we are having some of the Modulate gang doing stuff. Jules, I believe you're doing some things, and
yeah,
kinda. You know, Rob, Rob down there, Rob, I believe you're doing some things. And,
I'm doing something.
Yeah, and the other Rob is hopefully helping us tech, and it should be amazing.
Got Andy, Dave Julian as well doing something. I think Matt might have done something else. So yeah, we'll have the regular Modulate gang.
Yes, we really should either bring the good Mr. Spaull into this, or we need to say thank you to him, I guess.
Well, indeed,
we've kind of talked away from him.
I know. I've just said to Charles there, we're actually approaching the end. We ought to let people go to bed, really. We've slightly, just ever so slightly overrun.
Only slightly, just a smidgen, you know. It's been good fun.
Teensy bit, but it has been brilliant. Yeah, sorry, Rob, go on.
No, before I go, I just want to say thank you to doing those working away in the background and doing not only producing tracks, but Rob and Charles have been working the magic on the social media and kind of making everything come together and appear, and Ed and Jules for presenting it. It's been a joy. So yeah, thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Ed. As always, it's a pleasure talking to you. And
Jules, as ever, thank you. It's great talking to you, and to our plethora of Robs, which are somewhere in those directions.
Rob 1, thank you for your fantastic tune. Rob 2, thank you very much for your company as always. As Ed said, we've got 6:30 on Tuesday night. We do have the Oscilloscope one. We also have 8 o'clock tomorrow night, Only Human Radio. Don't forget that too. Sorry, Ed, go on. I'll let you do your final piece.
No, I was just about to say Only Human Radio and remind you of that. I believe also over the course of this evening, a vague plan has come to fruition that we're picking up on a comment from, I believe it was Sword Swing Robot, about people doing remixes of other things, and that might be a feature that will be coming up on Tuesday, possibly giving people the vote or the opportunity to vote for people from the Modulate camp to remix Oscilloscope stuff, or vice versa. So that'd
be cool.
Will almost certainly be something worth tuning in for if we can make that work. I don't know yet. It's a brilliant idea, and if we can make it work, we will do.
It'll be amazing. It'll be absolutely amazing. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. Gentlemen in the background, thank you. Artists who've performed tonight, thank you so much for putting your time and effort into preparing everything that you've done and for playing for us. And it's not easy. It takes a lot of time, and we do appreciate the time that goes into it, and everybody does it for absolutely nothing. So hopefully everybody's enjoyed it tonight. I know I thoroughly have done so. Guys, it's been a pleasure. We'll speak again on Tuesday. We'll speak to some people tomorrow night, and then some more people on Tuesday night, and very much looking forward to that, and looking forward to a good night's sleep. But I'll be too excited to sleep because there's too many exciting things. Too many exciting things coming up. I don't know what to say.
Thanks everyone. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Good night, all.
See you all.
Thank you. Night night.